So you already more or less foreshadowed or answered part of my next question, but I'd love to go a little bit deeper on the following, Lindsay, and that is, why do you think it's important, particularly now, to talk about how to teach civics or citizenship?
I think there are a lot of reasons, but one of the things that's sort of pressing now is that many children lack a model for how to do this sort of friction or discourse in a way that is civil and helpful. Oftentimes, what they're seeing on television or in short social media clips is outrage followed by other outrage or disbelief or thinking the person who disagrees with you is either an idiot or evil. And so it's really important that we give them models and we give them opportunities to practice the skills of developing opinions, clashing with others, coming to some sort of productive an outcome, which might be compromise. It might be learning. It might be neither, but it might not be outrage. And so I think it's important for us to do this sort of work so that we can turn the temperature down on our politics overall, but we also can sort of elevate this notion of patriotism, of what it is to be an American and how neat it is to live in a country that allows you to control your outcomes by participating in the democratic process. There are so many reasons that I think it's valuable to do this work now, but the key one is a lot of our children just aren't seeing how to do this because many of our adults were under practiced and under taught in the first place. And that's where we are today, where we have the opportunity to change it.
So you lead right into my next question, Lindsay, which is, how should we be teaching civics? You already talked about the fact that maybe our students get it in middle school and then they maybe get it in government class in 11th and 12th grade. That's traditionally how our students learn about civics. And let's face it, when it's not a tested subject like ELA or math, it even gets more short thrift. So, what do you think about, or how would you suggest, Lindsay, we think about teaching civics perhaps in a more creative and useful way? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the point about if it's not test, it's not taught is well taken and something that we heard in many of our interviews. But something else that's sort of curious to me is that with every other skill, we layer in a K through 12 way. Like with math, we start with very fundamental building blocks about like what number units are and then how you can combine them and then how you can divide them. And we build and build over time. We do the same with science, we do the same with writing. And so we think about all these other subjects in a layered scaffolding way. With civics, we dip in middle school and dip in high school, but a curriculum that sort of recognizes there are touch points to civics in every year is more beneficial than one that sort of drops in at 2 points in a child's development. I also know that the way that we teach civics varies across the country, private, independent, parochial, all the different schools have different approaches to it. But in the people who study what is like an effective form of teaching this subject matter, they will tell you that experiential learning is by far better than the theoretical premise that many of our programs use. When we talk to children, they'll say something like they learn about civics as history, where it's like this sort of play that happened 2000 years ago, not 250 years ago in their mind, but it's just, these old guys got together, they built this great system, and now they're sort of spectators instead of participants. And so we need to put our children back into the role of understanding that they are citizens. They are people who are capable of changing their outcomes. They just need to know what levers to pull on and who's responsible for what. And the last thing that I'll say is when we think about how we teach kids about this, it cannot be all negative. Our children get a very negative message about what government is from an early age before anyone's even talking to them. And this happens in the form of children's literature and children's entertainment. If you think about cartoons or if you think about the comic books you might have read, if they have a physical character that's representative of the government, it'll usually be like the mayor. And at best, that mayor is going to be like some sort of bumbling doofus who just barely gets things right. And at worst, they're going to be like the mayor of The Simpsons, where they're out to do harm to their city. And so we need to show our kids the positive role models, the ability to change outcomes by using these pathways. And we have to do it in many more years than we're doing it right now. I understand the constraints of that are hard, which is why I wrote this book to not only help educators, but to help parents do the work in their own homes.